There is a profound difference between being genuinely kind and being nice out of obligation or fear. Kindness is a fruit of the Spirit. It is an intentional act of love and compassion that stems from a pure heart. True kindness is powerful. It uplifts, encourages, and brings light into the darkness. But niceness, if not rooted in wisdom, can become a mask. It can be a sign of insecurity or a way to avoid conflict. When you are nice to everyone all the time, you are not always operating out of love, but sometimes out of fear. You fear rejection, criticism, and not being seen as good enough. But let me tell you, the approval of man is a fleeting thing. The applause of this world is temporary, but the approval of God is eternal. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is to set a boundary, to say no or to walk away. Kindness does not mean tolerating abuse or enabling bad behavior. It does not mean sacrificing your own peace just to keep others comfortable. Remember, even Jesus, who was the embodiment of love and compassion, did not say yes to everyone. He walked away from crowds, he rebuked those who needed correction, and he set boundaries to fulfill his purpose. When you prioritize being nice over being kind, you may find yourself drained, resentful, and lost. Your life becomes a performance, and your worth is tied to how others perceive you. But when your kindness is rooted in strength and guided by wisdom, you are free. Free to love, free to lead, and free to live according to God's purpose for your life. You begin to understand that it is not your job to keep everyone happy. It is your job to walk in truth and love. And sometimes love requires us to be firm, to speak up, and to step back. So stop being nice to everyone. Instead, be kind, be wise, and above all, be true to who God created you to be. There are people walking through life who have no idea who they really are anymore. Not because they were born without purpose, not because they lack intelligence or strength, but because they have spent so long trying to be everything for everyone else. They have sacrificed their own dreams, their own convictions, their own well-being, all because they didn't want to disappoint people. You see, when you live to please others, you begin to mold yourself into whatever version of you they like best. You smile when you don't feel like smiling. You say yes when your heart is screaming no. You accept mistreatment because you're afraid to speak up. And little by little, piece by piece, you lose yourself. You forget what you love. You forget what you believe. You forget who God made you to be. But let me tell you, God did not put you on this earth to be a puppet for people's expectations. He did not create you to be controlled by the opinions of others. You have a calling. You have a destiny. And if you keep bending and breaking to make everyone else happy, you will never step into it. Jesus himself never lost sight of his mission. People pressured him, questioned him, tried to manipulate him, but he never wavered. He didn't live for the approval of the crowds. He didn't change his message just to be liked. He stayed true to his purpose, even when it made others uncomfortable. And if you want to live a life that truly matters, you must do the same. Because the truth is, you can't be everything to everyone. You can't please every person you meet. And you shouldn't try. Some people will misunderstand you, some will reject you, some will walk away, but that's okay, because the people who truly love you will love you for who you are, not for the version of you that pleases them most. So stop losing yourself trying to make others happy. Stop shrinking to fit into spaces that were never meant for you. Be who God made you to be unapologetically. Set boundaries, stand firm. And remember this, your value does not come from how many people approve of you. It comes from the one who created you. Some people think that saying no is unkind. They believe that if they truly love others, they must always be available, always agreeable, always giving. But let me tell you something. God himself set boundaries. From the beginning of time, he established limits. He separated the day from the night. He set the ocean's borders. He created laws and commands, not just for order, but to protect his people. And Jesus, who walked in perfect love, had boundaries too. He didn't let everyone have access to him all the time. He withdrew to pray. He walked away from those who refused to listen. He didn't stay where he wasn't wanted. And when people tried to trap him, manipulate him, or pressure him, he did not bend. He stood firm. Yet too many people today are afraid to draw lines. They feel guilty when they say no. They feel obligated to keep giving even when they have nothing left. They feel like they must allow everyone into their life, even those who hurt them. But that is not love, that is bondage. Love is not sacrificing your peace for people who don't respect you. Love is not tolerating abuse to avoid conflict. Love is not overextending yourself until you are too drained to fulfill God's calling. Love, real love, is wise. It knows when to give and when to step back. It knows when to speak and when to stay silent. It knows when to endure and when to walk away. God does not expect you to be available to everyone at all times. He does not expect you to say yes to every request, to keep toxic people in your life, or to allow others to take advantage of you. He calls you to be wise. He calls you to guard your heart. He calls you to set boundaries, not to push people away, but to protect the life He has given you. So if you have been feeling guilty for setting limits, let this be your reminder. Boundaries are not selfish. They are not unkind. They are not ungodly. They are necessary. Because when you say no to the wrong things, you create space to say yes to the right ones. When you stop allowing the wrong people to drain you, you have more to pour into the ones who truly matter. And when you stop living for the approval of others, you finally start living for the approval of God. Too many people live their lives trapped in fear, not the fear of God, but the fear of man. They wake up each day worried about what people will think. They hold their tongues when they should speak. They nod in agreement when their hearts scream in protest. They sacrifice their convictions just to keep the peace. But my friend, if you live for the approval of man, you will never fulfill the purpose of God. The Bible says the fear of man brings a snare, but whoever trusts in the Lord is kept safe. Proverbs 29:25. You see, when you live for the opinions of others, you become their prisoner. You measure your worth by their words. You shape your choices around their expectations. You let their rejection break you and their approval define you. And in doing so, you hand over your God-given authority to people who were never meant to control you. But let me tell you, there is only one whose opinion truly matters. There is only one whose approval is eternal, and that is God Almighty. When you fear God more than man, you stop being afraid of rejection. You stop being afraid of criticism. You stop being afraid of losing friends because you realize that no human relationship is worth compromising your faith. Look at the prophets, look at the apostles, look at Jesus Himself. They did not live for applause. They did not change their message to make people comfortable. They stood firm even when it cost them everything, and because of their obedience, the world was changed. So let me ask you, who are you living for? Are you chasing the approval of people who will forget your name tomorrow? Or are you living for the God who holds your eternity? Because you can't serve two masters. You can't please man and please God at the same time. And when you finally let go of that need to be liked, when you finally break free from the fear of man, you will step into a boldness you never knew was possible. So stop worrying about who will walk away. Stop apologizing for standing on truth. Stop bowing to people when you were made to bow only to God. Because when your fear of God is greater than your fear of man, nothing can stop you from fulfilling your destiny. Your time, your strength, your emotions, these are not unlimited resources. Yet too many people waste them on the wrong things, on the wrong people, in the wrong places. They give and give, pouring themselves out for those who take them for granted, leaving themselves empty and exhausted. But listen to me. Not everyone deserves your energy. Not everyone deserves access to your life. Jesus himself didn't give his time to everyone. Yes, he loved the world, but he didn't chase after those who rejected him. He didn't waste his energy trying to convince people who had already hardened their hearts. He spoke the truth, and if they refused to listen, he moved on. He poured into the disciples, into those who were hungry for God, into those who truly wanted to change. Some of you are tired, not because you're weak, but because you are investing in the wrong people. You keep trying to fix those who don't want to be fixed. You keep chasing friendships that drain you. You keep giving your heart to people who don't care if they break it. And then you wonder why you feel so empty, so unappreciated, so lost. But let me tell you, your energy is sacred, your peace is valuable, your purpose is too important to be wasted on people who don't respect it. Stop pouring into places where there is no return. Stop giving your time to those who don't value it. Stop exhausting yourself trying to win the approval of people who will never be satisfied. God has called you to something greater. He has given you a mission, a purpose, a destiny, and you cannot fulfill it if you are constantly drained, constantly distracted, constantly giving yourself away to people who don't deserve it. So be wise, protect your energy, guard your heart. Because when you stop wasting your strength on the wrong things, when you stop investing in the people who don't care, you will finally have room for the ones who do. And when you stop giving your energy to everyone, you will finally have the power to give it to the things that truly matter. Some people have been taught that being a good person means saying yes to everything, yes to every request, yes to every favor, yes to every demand, even when it drains them. They have been made to feel guilty for saying no, as if setting boundaries is somehow unchristian. But let me tell you, saying no is not a sin. In fact, sometimes it is necessary. Jesus himself did not say yes to everyone. He didn't heal every sick person in Israel. He didn't answer every demand for a miracle. He didn't meet every expectation placed on him. He obeyed the will of God, not the will of people. And there were times when he walked away. There were times when he withdrew. There were times when he chose rest over ministry, silence over argument, separation over compromise. Yet many people today feel like they must be available 24/7. They feel like they must always say yes or risk disappointing someone. But my friend, you are not called to carry everyone's burdens. You are not required to meet every need. You are not obligated to please every person who comes your way. Saying no does not mean you are unkind. It means you have priorities. It means you recognize your limits. It means you are wise enough to know that if you give everything away, you will have nothing left to give. Some of you have been living under the weight of guilt. You've been afraid to disappoint people. You've been saying yes when your soul is crying for rest. But today I want to free you. God has not called you to be a slave to people's expectations. He has not asked you to sacrifice your peace just to make others comfortable. So say no without guilt. Say no without apology. Because every time you say no to the wrong things, you are making room to say yes to the right one. Every time you say no to the distractions, you are saying yes to your purpose. And every time you say no to the pressures of people, you are saying yes to the will of God. The way people treat you is often a reflection of what you allow. If you let them take advantage of your kindness, they will. If you tolerate disrespect, they will continue to disrespect you. If you always say yes out of fear of rejection, they will expect you to always comply. But listen to me, you are not a doormat. You are not here to be used, manipulated, or taken for granted. You teach people how to treat you by what you accept, by what you tolerate, and by what you refuse to allow. Jesus, the most loving man to ever walk this earth, did not allow people to treat him any way they pleased. He confronted the Pharisees when they were wrong. He rebuked Peter when he tried to pull him off course. He didn't lower his standards just to be accepted, and he certainly didn't let people dictate his purpose. Some of you have been allowing mistreatment for far too long. You've been excusing bad behavior. You've been staying silent when you should speak up. You've been keeping toxic relationships alive just to avoid conflict. But let me tell you, if you keep allowing it, it will keep happening. If you keep tolerating it, it will never change. You must teach people how to treat you. If they cross a line, you need to address it. If they take advantage of your kindness, you need to set boundaries. If they continue to mistreat you despite your warnings, you need to walk away. Not everyone deserves access to you. Not everyone should have a place in your life. And if someone refuses to respect you, you have every right to remove them from your circle. This is not about being rude. This is about knowing your worth. This is about understanding that you are not obligated to keep people around just because they expect it. You deserve relationships that are built on mutual respect, not manipulation. You deserve friendships that pour into you, not just take from you. And the moment you start setting boundaries, the right people will stay and the wrong ones will remove themselves. So, stop allowing yourself to be treated less than what God intended. Stop letting fear keep you in toxic situations. Stand up, speak up, set the standard. Because when you teach people how to treat you, you stop being a victim and you start walking in the confidence that God has given you. Many people are living on empty. They give and give until they have nothing left. They run from one need to another, always helping, always sacrificing, always saying yes. And while giving is a beautiful thing, there is a danger when you give beyond your capacity. You see, you cannot pour from an empty cup. You cannot truly help others when you are spiritually, emotionally, and physically drained. Jesus, who was the ultimate servant, knew this well. Despite the countless needs around him, he often withdrew to be alone with God. He understood that in order to continue his mission, he needed to recharge. He needed to refill his own cup before he could pour into others. He did not apologize for taking time away. He did not explain himself when he needed rest. He simply stepped away, knowing that his strength came from his relationship with the Father. But too often we feel guilty for resting. We feel selfish for taking a break. We think that if we are not constantly giving, we are not doing enough. But the truth is, if you keep running on empty, eventually you will break down. You will become bitter instead of loving. You will become resentful instead of joyful. You will become a shell of the person God intended you to be. If you are always giving and never receiving, you will burn out. Your relationships will suffer. Your health will decline. Your spirit will feel heavy. And the worst part is your ability to truly help others will diminish, because you cannot give what you do not have. You cannot offer peace if you have none. You cannot give wisdom if you are too weary to hear from God. You cannot bring hope if you yourself are running on fumes. So take time to refill your cup. Spend time in prayer. Rest without guilt. Say no when you need to. Prioritize your health spiritually, emotionally, and physically. Because when you take care of yourself, you are not only honoring God, but you are also ensuring that when you do pour into others, it is from a place of abundance, not emptiness. Remember, God does not expect you to do everything for everyone. He expects you to do what He has called you to do and to do it well. And sometimes that means stepping back, recharging, and allowing God to fill you up again, so that when you do pour out, it is with love, strength, and purpose. Too many people live trapped in the prison of other people's opinions. They walk on eggshells, afraid to offend. They hide their true thoughts, fearing rejection. They bend over backward, trying to be liked by everyone. But no matter how hard you try, no matter how kind, how generous, how patient you are, there will always be people who don't like you. And that's okay. Jesus, the Son of God, was perfect in love, perfect in truth, perfect in every way, and yet he was hated. He was criticized, rejected, mocked, and ultimately crucified, not because he did wrong, but because he stood for something, because he spoke truth, because he did not live for human approval. If Jesus himself was rejected, why do we expect everyone to accept us? The problem is, when you live to be liked, you compromise. You soften the truth. You tolerate things you shouldn't. You let people walk all over you just to keep the peace. But let me tell you something. True peace does not come from pleasing people. It comes from obeying God. Some of you have been exhausting yourselves trying to make everyone happy. But the reality is, no matter what you do, some people will misunderstand you. Some will reject you. Some will talk behind your back. And if you are constantly chasing their approval, you will never be free. But here's the good news. You don't need their approval. You don't need their validation. You don't need their applause, because your worth is not defined by how many people like you. It is defined by the one who created you. And when you stop living for people's opinions and start living for God's purpose, you will find a freedom like never before. So let go of the need to be liked. Let go of the fear of rejection. Some people will love you, some won't. Some will support you, some will walk away. But none of that changes who you are in God. Because at the end of your life, it won't matter how many people approved of you. It will only matter if you lived in obedience to Him. Kindness is a virtue. Compassion is powerful. But when kindness is not balanced with wisdom, when compassion is not guided by discernment, it can turn into weakness. Some people believe that being a good person means tolerating everything, accepting everything, agreeing with everyone. But let me tell you, there is a difference between being kind and being weak. Jesus was kind, but he was never weak. He showed mercy to sinners, but he did not excuse sin. He forgave, but he did not allow people to walk over him. He welcomed the broken, but he rebuked those who tried to manipulate him. He turned the other cheek when it was time for humility, but he turned over tables when it was time for righteous anger. He was not controlled by fear of offending people. He was controlled by the will of God. Some of you have mistaken weakness for kindness. You let people take advantage of you. You let others disrespect you because you think it's the Christian thing to do. But listen, God did not call you to be weak. He called you to be strong. He called you to be bold. He called you to stand firm in truth, even when it makes others uncomfortable. There is a time to be gentle, and there is a time to be firm. There is a time to serve, and there is a time to set boundaries. There is a time to turn the other cheek, and there is a time to stand your ground. If you let the world walk all over you, if you keep quiet when you should speak, if you allow fear to keep you from taking a stand, then you are not showing kindness, you are showing weakness. And weakness will keep you from fulfilling your purpose. It will keep you from walking in confidence. It will keep you stuck in situations God never intended for you. Because God's people were never meant to be powerless. They were never meant to be passive. They were called to walk in strength, in authority, in courage. So stop confusing kindness with weakness. Be loving, but be strong. Be compassionate, but be wise. Be forgiving, but be firm. Because God's purpose for your life is too great for you to live in fear. And when you finally step into the boldness He has given you, you will no longer be just a nice person. You will be a person of power, a person of purpose, a person who stands for truth without apology. Some people only keep you around for what they can get from you. They don't truly care about you. They don't respect you. They don't value your time or your effort. They only see you as a source, someone who will always say yes, always help, always be available. And if you allow it, they will keep taking, draining, and using you until there's nothing left. Jesus Himself experienced this. Crowds followed Him, not because they loved Him, but because they wanted miracles. They wanted bread. They wanted healing. But the moment he challenged them, the moment he spoke truth that made them uncomfortable, they walked away. They were not there for him. They were there for what he could give them. And the same is true today. Some people in your life are not there because they love you. They are there because of what you offer. They want your help, your resources, your time, your energy. But the moment you stop giving, they will disappear. That's why you must be wise. You must recognize who truly cares for you and who is simply using you. You must understand that love is mutual, respect is mutual, and healthy relationships are not one-sided. If you are always the giver, always the one sacrificing, always the one putting in effort while others do nothing, then you are in a relationship that is built on taking, not love. And let me tell you, God did not create you to be used by people. He created you to be loved, respected, and valued. He does not want you stuck in relationships that drain you. He does not want you surrounded by people who only see you as an opportunity. He wants you to walk in wisdom, to set boundaries, to protect your heart. So stop letting people take advantage of you. Stop saying yes out of guilt. Stop keeping people in your life who only care about what you can do for them. Because the right people, the ones who truly love you, will be there even when you have nothing to offer. They will value you for who you are, not just for what you give. And when you finally stop allowing yourself to be used, you will find freedom, peace, and the relationships that God truly wants for you. Not everyone who smiles at you is your friend. Not everyone who stands beside you is truly with you. Some people only stay connected to you for their own benefit. They pretend to care, but they gossip behind your back. They act supportive, but they secretly hope you fail. They keep you close not because they love you, but because they want access to what you have. And if you allow them to stay in your life, they will drain you emotionally, spiritually, even physically. Jesus understood this reality. Among the 12 disciples, there was Judas. He walked with Jesus, ate with Jesus, listened to Jesus, but his heart was never truly with him. He betrayed Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. And let me tell you, there are people in your life right now who, if given the right price, would turn their backs on you just as quickly. Some of you are exhausted not because of the demands of life, but because of the company you keep. You are surrounded by people who pretend to be your friends, but deep down, they are envious of you. They don't celebrate your victories. They don't support your growth. They don't push you toward God's purpose. Instead, they pull you down, discourage you, and plant seeds of doubt in your mind. You must recognize the difference between real friends and fake ones. Real friends pray for you. They stand with you in hard times. They challenge you to be better. They are happy when you succeed, but fake friends only stay when it's convenient. They only support you when it benefits them. And the moment you stop meeting their expectations, they disappear. But listen, God does not want you to be surrounded by people who drain you. He wants you to have true friendships, relationships that bring life, not exhaustion. He wants you to walk with people who sharpen you, who strengthen you, who push you closer to Him. So, don't be afraid to cut off fake friendships. Don't be afraid to walk away from relationships that no longer serve God's purpose in your life. It's better to walk alone with God than to be surrounded by people who secretly hope for your downfall. Because when you remove the wrong people, you make room for the right ones. And when you finally let go of fake friendships, you will find peace, clarity, and the kind of relationships that truly bless your life. Some of you have spent your whole life trying to keep everyone happy. You say yes even when you don't want to. You sacrifice your time, your energy, and your peace just to make sure no one is upset with you. You walk on eggshells, afraid that if you disappoint someone, they will stop loving you. But let me tell you, you are not responsible for everyone's happiness. That burden is too heavy for you to carry, and God never asked you to bear it. Jesus loved people deeply, but he did not live to please them. He did not adjust his message to make everyone comfortable. He did not change his purpose just to avoid offending the Pharisees. And when people walked away from him, he let them go because he understood that his mission was to obey God, not to keep people happy. Some of you need to hear this today. You are not God. You cannot fix everyone. You cannot make everyone happy. No matter how much you do, someone will always want more. No matter how much you give, some people will never be satisfied. And if you live your life constantly trying to please others, you will wear yourself out and you will never fulfill God's calling for you. There comes a time when you must realize that your job is to obey God, not to be a people pleaser. Your job is to walk in truth, not to make everyone comfortable. Your job is to do what is right, not what is popular. Some people will get angry when you set boundaries. Some will guilt trip you when you say no. Some will act like you have betrayed them just because you stopped being available to their every need, but that is their issue, not yours. Their happiness is not your responsibility, their approval is not your purpose, and their expectations do not define your worth. When you stop trying to keep everyone happy, you will find peace. You will stop living under pressure. You will realize that the only approval that truly matters is God's. So stop exhausting yourself trying to please people who will never be satisfied. Live for God. Follow His calling and trust that the right people, the ones who truly love you, will respect your boundaries even when you say no. Some of you have given too many people access to your life. You let anyone in. You open your heart, your time, your energy to people who don't deserve it. You give your loyalty to those who don't value it. You keep people close who only bring negativity, drama, and distractions. But listen to me. Not everyone deserves access to you. Jesus loved the world, but He did not give the same level of access to everyone. He had crowds who followed Him, but He didn't trust them all. He had 70 disciples He sent out, but He didn't reveal everything to them. He had 12 close disciples, but even among them, only 3, Peter, James, and John, were allowed to see Him in His most intimate moments. And among those 3, only one, John, was called the disciple whom Jesus loved. Jesus loved everyone, but He was careful about who had access to His heart. And you must do the same. Some of you are tired, not because of your responsibilities, but because of who you have allowed into your life. You let toxic people drain you. You keep negative voices too close. You tolerate gossip, betrayal, and dishonesty from people who have no business being in your inner circle. And because of that, you have no peace. Not everyone deserves to know your plans. Not everyone deserves to hear your struggles. Not everyone should have access to your emotions. Some people come into your life only to take, to use, to distract, and to destroy. And if you are not careful, they will pull you away from your purpose, away from your peace, away from God's will for your life. So, start guarding your access. Pray for wisdom about who belongs in your life. Set boundaries. Stop letting the wrong people take up space in your heart and mind. Because when you close the door to the wrong people, you make room for the right ones. And when you finally stop giving access to those who don't deserve it, you will walk in a new level of strength, peace, and purpose like never before. Some of you have been saying yes for too long. Yes to requests that drain you. Yes to people who take advantage of you. Yes to commitments that pull you away from God's purpose. You think saying yes makes you kind, loving, and godly, but let me tell you, sometimes the most godly thing you can do is say no. Jesus Himself said no. He didn't heal every sick person in Israel. He didn't meet every demand placed on Him. He didn't perform miracles just to entertain crowds. He walked in obedience to the Father, not in obedience to people's expectations. When Martha was anxious and busy, He told her one thing is needed. When the Pharisees tried to trap Him, He didn't answer their foolishness. When people wanted to crown him king by force, he walked away. Jesus knew when to say no. But many of you struggle with this. You feel guilty for setting boundaries. You worry that saying no makes you selfish. But the truth is, if you always say yes to others, you will eventually say no to yourself, your peace, your health, and ultimately God's calling on your life. God did not call you to be a people pleaser. He called you to be obedient to Him. And sometimes that means disappointing others. Sometimes that means walking away from certain relationships. Sometimes that means refusing to carry burdens that were never yours to bear. The enemy wants you exhausted. He wants you so busy saying yes to everyone that you have no energy left for God. But today, you need to break free from that. You need to stop saying yes out of guilt and start saying no out of wisdom. Because when you say no to the wrong things, you are saying yes to the right things. You are saying yes to peace. You are saying yes to purpose. You are saying yes to God's plan for your life. And when you finally learn that no is not rejection but protection, you will walk in a freedom you have never known before. My friend, you were not created to live for the approval of others. You were not meant to exhaust yourself trying to keep everyone happy. You were not called to be weak, to be used, or to tolerate what drains you. God has a greater purpose for your life, and it's time to step into it. It's time to stop being nice at the cost of your peace. It's time to stop saying yes when God is telling you to say no. It's time to set boundaries, to walk in wisdom, to guard your heart, and to stop allowing people to take advantage of your kindness. You can still love people without letting them control you. You can still be compassionate without being weak. You can still serve without becoming a doormat. And here's the truth. When you stop chasing people's approval, when you stop bending over backward for those who don't value you, when you stop allowing toxic relationships to drain you, you will find something priceless: freedom. The freedom to walk in confidence, the freedom to pursue God's calling, the freedom to live without fear of what others think. Jesus didn't live to please people, He lived to fulfill His mission, and now it's your turn. Let go of the need to be liked. Let go of the fear of disappointing others. Step into the strength God has given you, because when you live for His purpose and not for people's opinions, you will finally experience the peace, power, and purpose He created you for.